Hi everyone, so I want to go over the classwork from Monday, April 27th. This is kind of like our second week of trigonometry. Um, First thing I want you guys to do, as usual, is to watch this YouTube video to help you guys just kind of get a little bit of context, or be sure to work through the problems they work through and take detailed notes. You'll send me those notes. I actually worked out this first problem here for you. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go over this one. I'm just going to do this quickly, but after that I'll go through one of the trig problems. Well, I guess one of the longer problems. So just to review, the opposite side is always, well, I always start with hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So I had to put our h here, that will be RP. So RP. Now, then I do opposite. Opposite is always across my reference angle. So this will be opposite. So for this one, we can say that this side is PQ. And this one, the adjacent, is whatever's left over. And that must be RQ. So, again, real quick, that's how you do that. Let's go down, and I want you guys to do this one on your own. Here's how you find sine, cosine, tangent on your calculator. Take your phone, flip it sideways, you'll get a screen that looks like this. And we're going to be using the sine, cosine, or tangent videos, buttons. Okay, so I'm going to try and I'm going to do 9 first. So for this problem, first step is always to label opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. That's why I put those 3 easier problems ahead of this. I want to put this in the context. Always label your sides. So hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So this is our hypotenuse. Opposite is always across from the reference angle. Whatever angle they give you, oftentimes the letter, this time it's 37 degrees, they put a number in there. So I'm going to call this our opposite, and then our adjacent is whatever's left over. So that's our 11. Whatever's next to the angle that isn't the hypotenuse. Okay. So let's see. First things first, we're trying to find x. We're trying to find our hypotenuse. So we know the adjacent. So real quick, we always go back to our SOHCAHTOA to figure out what equation we need to use. So SOHCAHTOA. So we know the adjacent. We want to find the hypotenuse. So what has adjacent and hypotenuse in it? That would be our cosine, our CA. So let's use that. Let's say the cosine. Remember that the cosine of theta of an angle is always equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So our theta is 37. So this means that the cosine of 37 is equal to the adjacent, which was 11, over our hypotenuse, which is x. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm trying to get x by itself, and that's a little bit difficult because it's over here in the denominator. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by x. And I've done this on a previous video as well, so hopefully it'll make sense in a second. If I multiply both sides by x, the x's cancel over here. So now let's rewrite our equation as x times the cosine of 37 is equal to 11. Now we want x by itself, so maybe you're thinking, why do we move it over here? The reason is now what we can do is we can divide both sides by the cosine of 37. Divide this side by the cosine of 37. Over here, cosine of 37 over the cosine of 37 cancels. I'm going to cancel all that out. And what we're left over with will just be our x. So x is equal to 11 over the cosine of 37. Okay, so now all we got to do is, let's just go to our calculator, let's figure out what the cosine of 37 is. So to get this, remember we got to flip our phone sideways. You might start off with your phone like this. You flip it sideways, you get something like this. Okay, so cosine of 37. So let's put in 37. Hit the cosine button. We get 0.798. Let's round this to 0.799. Round that 8 up to a 9. So 0.799. No. Okay. So x is equal to 11 all over 0.799. And what we got to do is we just got to do 11 divided by 0.799. And we get 13.76. I'm going to call this 13.77. Round that 6 up to a 7. And I did that again. Okay. So that equals our x. So I'm going to highlight this. This is our answer. X is equal to 13.77. So that's how you do this problem. I'm going to show you another version where the algebra will look a little bit different, but it'll either look like this or it'll look like what I'm about to show you. Most important thing, I think, is to pick the correct equation here. You know, like when you're doing problems like this, you can get points by using the correct trig function. Correctly using cosine here, knowing that you need to use cosine because you're trying to find the hypotenuse, and you know the adjacent. So let's try out another one. I'm going to do number 10, and you guys are going to do 11 and 12. Okay, move this over here. All right, cool. So, first off, let's label our sides. What is the hypotenuse? Always across from the right angle. The opposite is always across from the reference angle. And the adjacent is whatever's left over. So we want to find out what x is. So that means we want to find the opposite, and we know the adjacent. We don't know anything about the hypotenuse. So again, always write your SOHCAHTOA. Let's figure out which of these we're going to use. SOHCAHTOA. Okay, cool. So remember that we know the adjacent. We're trying to find the opposite. We're trying to find x. So what has opposite and adjacent in it? Opposite and adjacent is our TOA. So that means we're going to use tangent. So the tangent of theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. So now we have this general equation. Let's plug in what we know. We know that our angle, theta, that's our 32 here. So the tangent of 32 is equal to our opposite, which is our x, all over our adjacent, which is our 13. That didn't work. Let me try that again. 13. Okay, cool. So next step, we're trying to get x by itself. We got this 13 down here that we want to get rid of. So if it's x divided by 13, what's the opposite of division? And that would be multiplication. So we're going to multiply both sides by 13. So they cancel over here. So now we got basically x is equal to 13 times the tangent of 32. All right, cool. Let's just figure out what the tangent of 32 is. So 32, then hit your tangent button, and that's 0.62. Let's say it's 0.625. Let's round that 4 up to a 5. So x is equal to 13 times 0.625. Okay, so let's figure out what 13 times 0.625 is. And I already have it on my calculator over here, so let's just do this times 13. What do we get? We get 8.12. 3, I'm going to leave that 3 there. I'm just going to call it 8.12. So x equals 8.12. And it's always good to put this into context. See how this adjacent over here was 13. This over here being 8.12, to me that doesn't look ridiculous, you know, it shouldn't raise any eyebrows. So that is our answer for this problem. And you see, I think the most important thing for this is just to recognize how the algebra was different. Selecting the correct equation here, tangent, sine, or cosine, will always be the same process. It's just once you start working it, sometimes you'll have to, there will basically be two different ways that you'll solve the problem. I think this way is a little bit easier, where you just have to multiply by whatever's in the bottom, and then you're kind of done. The other one has an extra step in it. But as long as you know both ways, you'll be all right. So I did number 10. I want you guys to do 11 and 12. And then once you're done, take a picture of all your work, and you send it to me.